Hello and welcome to Your HR Career Podcast. I am very pleased to have the delightful Victoria Knight with me today. Hello, Victoria.
Hi, Jane. Good to be here.
Welcome to the show. So, just like all the other people that I've spoken to, I sent you some questions beforehand, which you did a little bit of homework. As with everyone, I'm going to take us through some, but really we're focusing on an opportunity to share ideas of different ways of approaching an HR career. And you've got a couple of interesting little sidebars I want to dive into. So I'm sure you can guess which they are, but we'll get to those in time. So let's begin then. So tell us where it all began for you then. Why HR? How did you get into it?
So I'm going to be really honest and say I can't say I set out with my sights on a career in HR. I absolutely
do. Yeah.
I don't think anyone does, no. So I took a little bit of an unusual route into HR, if I'm being honest. I'll try not to bore you with too much detail here, but I went to a grammar school. They bred you to go to university. And at 18, I suddenly went a little bit rabbit in the headlights and kind of went, I'm not sure I've picked the right degree for me here. So I went and had that really hard conversation with mum and dad to say, I don't really know that this is the right path for me. I want to take a little bit of time to think about things and so on. And my dad did the typical dad thing. I went, that's okay, but you're going to have to get yourself a proper job. So I was really fortunate. I kind of looked through the paper as you did back then, and I applied for a job with PricewaterhouseCoopers. And I was really, really lucky to land one of three, I believe it was at the time, kind of traineeships with PwC. So this was joining them at 18, going through kind of your AAT as it was, with a career path to go on, do your ACA, so on and so forth. I thought, well, there you go, Dad, that's a proper job. I've ticked that box for you.
He was very pleased.
Yeah. Oh, he was very pleased. He was. Probably back at the naive age of 18, I didn't quite realise how big PwC were at the time. But for me, this was the start of what kind of led me into a career in HR. I very quickly learned when I joined them that I did not want to be an accountant. So as much as I have a love for facts and figures these days and navigating my way around a P&L and a balance sheet, at the tender age of 18 really did not float my boat at all. Now, I was very, very lucky to have joined what's now their business recovery team. This for me gave me a great grounding in my career. This is going into different businesses every couple of months. These are businesses that are obviously in financial hardship or financial troubles. You are then looking at kind of a turnaround situation with said company, or a sale, or ultimately, worst comes to the worst, a closure of that business. As I said, I very quickly learned that I did not want to be an accountant, but I was fortunate enough that one of the partners saw something in me and said, you seem to have a real skill for kind of dealing with the people aspect of things. Would you like to come and join our team of employment specialists? And that was that, really. That was my segue into HR. And I have to say, it gave me such a fantastic grounding for kind of an onward career, starting out in that space of challenge in HR.
Yeah, and how interesting that you can see the thread through what you're doing now, which we'll come to later, but how interesting that that was there at the start.
Yeah.
So interested in business, head for figures, but a real naturalness with people. So that was kind of your seed, wasn't it? That was where you started.
Absolutely.
Yeah, fantastic. And where did you go from PwC then? What happened next? How did you develop into HR?
Yeah, so I'm going to be honest, I did a stint with PwC, and then I went and did the same again with KPMG. And then after a little while, I said, I kind of need to do something different here. I want to see much more of the kind of positive side of HR. I'd spent a long time working through lots of trade union stuff, lots of redundancies, lots of deemed the negative side of HR, but I think if it's handled in the right way, it can be done with a very positive lens on it. But I wanted to really go and enjoy some of the other sides of HR that I'd not experienced yet. More around things like recruitment, onboarding, employee engagement, driving things around culture change. So I took a really considered a choice to kind of step away from the world that I was in currently. I took a bit of a backward step, to be honest, and took a much more junior role to then kind of get myself experience with businesses, going through the traditional, more of a HR business partner role, head of HR, and so on.
Yeah.
Now, what I did is I took that step backwards. I joined a company that was going on a growth trajectory, and you'll see a pattern of this as you kind of navigate through my career. It is companies that are going through change, going through growth. That's the thing that really excites me, where I think you can add an awful lot of value. From my perspective, people are kind of the heart of any organization, and I think if you get it right, it creates kind of a platform for a business to scale, to grow, to really kind of do something quite special. Where it's wrong and it's not working right, I think that really can hold a company back from achieving its full potential.
Very good. So we've got this feeling of you then building up this knowledge and a few different organizations, and you're moving up through your career. I asked you about what was your power move, which is something that I've asked everyone, partly because I'm interested to see which point in their careers they feel it all came together, because that there is that feeling, isn't there, at some point, that you think, oh, okay, yeah, I was in a good spot there, it all kind of came together. And you referenced a period around about 2012 when you started working in roles that had private equity backing. So tell us a little bit about that, because it's a slightly different kind of world of HR, isn't it? So just give us a little description of how that went for you.
So it wasn't a move I consciously made, been entirely honest, but one that really panned out well for me. I've been working in a retail organization for probably 4 or 5 years at this point, a company that had gone through a whole period of growth. I was approached about a role very much as kind of a setting up a team from scratch, which really appealed to me. So this was a company that had just been acquired by private equity. It had been carved out of a much larger PLC. The role that I'd been recruited to carry out was to establish a HR function, split it away from the PLC, and make it a standalone company in its own right, and then obviously support it through the private equity ownership. Now, for me, private equity ticks an awful lot of boxes. If you think about the things we've just spoken about, I really enjoy growth. I really enjoy change. And I think this was a bit of a light bulb moment for me when I kind of joined this business that was private equity owned, to say, private equity space is generally where you tend to see an awful lot of kind of growth and change, and something that you can really feel a sense of achievement from. It's got almost like a start to it and a middle to it and an end to it, that end being hopefully a successful sale at the conclusion. And I think for me that was a bit of a light bulb moment when I absolutely recognized in myself that a job where it's just BAU, keeping the lights on, and a company that's not kind of going through any kind of change, growth, turmoil even, is not something that really excites me. So I wouldn't say it was my power move, but it was more definitely that light bulb moment for me to say, this is a space I really enjoy playing in. And I've gone and done multiple private equity stints since that point. And I really enjoy that kind of finite period of time where it is very much get your sleeves rolled up, get stuck in, deliver an awful lot of stuff in a very consolidated period of time. If it's successful, great. We take the company on a huge kind of growth trajectory with a sale at the end of it. And that for me ticks so many boxes in terms of satisfaction. Yeah.
And that's very much about being a project person, isn't it? And enjoying, as you say, it's quite an intense process, but it's got start, middle and end, and there's kind of tangibles on there. You're achieving something. And I think it's really useful for people who might be listening who are perhaps less experienced in their careers to think, what kind of HR person am I? And kind of where do I slot in? Because certainly we can see from your experience that you were very comfortable with business and business change and business process, and that really links nicely, doesn't it, into a sort of a private equity style.
It
Other
does.
people, it might not be right for them, but it's kind of, I think that's what's interesting, to explore different routes in. So this is all good, glorious stuff, but we're going to just flip over to the dark side slightly. So I've asked everybody in their questions about where things haven't gone as well, or things they didn't get that they wish they had, just when it's a bit more difficult. So you touched on a role that culturally was a bad fit for you.
Yeah.
And I'm really interested for you just to take us through that, in that you're somebody who's used to seeing culture from the outside, coming in, given a remit to change it. So how do you think that happened then, that you came into a role where the culture was a mismatch? Kind of what were your takeaways afterwards? Perhaps how could you help people avoid that themselves?
Yeah, so this for me, it was a bit of a learning curve, I'm going to call it, because I like to take learnings from kind of everything that you do. And I think the learning that I took from this was spend more time in the interview process on occasion. So this was a role I'd interviewed for. I won't name the company, but on paper, it should have ticked an awful lot of boxes for me. It was a huge brand that was growing on a global scale, very much with a leadership team in its infancy that needed kind of quite a bit of hand-holding. During the interview process, they had very much described wanting to make cultural changes, knowing that they needed to kind of go on a bit of a change journey. They were becoming a bigger organization, needed to mature, so on and so forth. And I think I was kind of a little bit kind of, not rabbit in the headlights, but a little bit kind of starstruck and gone, wow, this is a great opportunity. Big, huge, growing global brand. Get in, get something done, make a real impact here. But on kind of joining the business, there was a real cultural mismatch between kind of how I like to work and I suppose their appetite for change as well. And I think their appetite for change wasn't quite as progressed as they'd kind of led me to believe during the interview process. I'm not sure they wanted to embrace some of the change that I felt they needed to embrace as an organization. And ultimately, we reached a very grown-up conclusion, the two parties, to say this is not working for either of us, and we went our separate ways. I think, I was grown up enough to recognize that it wasn't the right fit for me, and similarly to call it out and say it's not the right fit for them. I think if you really want to drive change and add value to an organization, you've got to kind of believe you want to make a difference within that organization. Otherwise, some of the initiatives you want to land will just never kind of work out. So it was a steep learning curve for me. Stress test a little bit more in kind of terms of interview processes and so on, and make sure that actually there is that real alignment between your values and what you believe in and what a company kind of wants to deliver, because that's where you'll deliver your best work.
Absolutely. And if people are in a similar position, but perhaps feel nervous, anxious about leaving because it'll look bad on their CV, has that been your experience?
No, not at all. I think if you have a genuine reason for moving on from an organization and you're not just job hopping every 6 to 12 months without any justifiable reason for it, people understand that. I would beg you to find somebody that's not got a job in their past that they go, oh, that wasn't quite what I thought it was, or it was a little bit of a mistake. I think loads of people out there have kind of found themselves in a similar situation. And, my advice would be, we spend a lot of time at work, right? If you are not happy, then that is not where you need to be. It is a long time on a weekly basis to feel unhappy in what you're doing. And my view would be, do something about it. Only you can impact the change there to make, do something different.
Yeah. And I think that's very encouraging, because I think also when you're more junior, it can feel like a bigger deal than it is. But I think I would absolutely, I have an equal culture mismatch in my background. I just moved on from it, and I think you own it, and it can actually be told as a positive story that I was learning what kind of organization worked for me, and that wasn't it. And I also think when you're in an organization within HR, we can make a great influence, can't we?
Mm.
And if you are in an organization where your heart isn't in it, or your kind of special blend of magic isn't right for them, you're going to hinder what they can achieve.
100%.
So in a way, it's sort of almost being considerate for that organization as well as to say, I'm not the right person right now for you.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
So,
absolutely. And, you know, it comes back to being able to deliver your best work, right, and give the best results. And, you know, for me, that's the thing that I get out of bed for in the morning, is knowing I've done a good job. And actually, I can look back when I leave an organisation and realise you've left a good legacy there. And I think if you get to the end of an appointment and you can't do that, that's an issue.
Yeah, you want to feel like you're giving your best, because that's in everyone's interest. So I kind of hope that that's reassuring for people. So let's talk a little bit about kind of what makes a great HR person. And I'm sure you have many strengths, Victoria, but you have admitted to one weakness, which is not being a natural organizer. I'm going to just phrase it in a gentle way. So I'm amazed that, firstly, that you've managed to cope with the thought that you're not a great organizer, because a lot of organizing in HR, isn't there?
Oh, so much.
So how do you get around it?
It's something that I've taught myself over time. If I look back at my early career, I was, how best adjective to describe it, I'm going to say chaotic. You know, I kind of knew what was going on, but I didn't really have a system for kind of working through stuff, and I certainly wasn't organized, which anybody who knows me today will go, no. Surely not, because I am now renowned and known for being Mrs. Organised. And I think this is because of the things I've taught myself over the years to get me to a point where it's still not natural to me. But because of kind of the different mechanisms I have in place, it's become something that I'm just really strict about. You'll know yourself, Jane. You're working in HR, you can have, whether you're kind of the lead HR person in a business, whether you're, you know, at the start of your career as a HR admin, HR advisor, whatever that might look like, a business partner, you will always have multiple things on the boil at any given time, whether it's BAU stuff, whether it's some projects that you're managing, whether it's just you've been grabbed by Joe Bloggs because he's got something going wrong and you had to drop everything to go deal with something. You're spinning multiple plates all the time, and I guarantee you, without organization, you'll drop something, and you will lose sight of something that is super important. So over the years, I've kind of honed the techniques that work for me, and just because they work for me doesn't mean to say they'll work for somebody else. I think you have to find your own kind of mechanisms for keeping organized. But I am a religious user of my diary. I use as many kind of digital tools as I possibly can to stay organized. Try and avoid the notebooks as much as I can possibly these days, which is something I've kind of moved towards in the last probably 5 years. I've always been a bit of a copious note taker. Not only does that kind of, you know, waste trees, you're always then trying to look back for something if it's important. Whereas getting into the digital era just kind of negates the need for that. I think now as well, with new tools coming onto the market all the time, like things in AI and so on that can help with kind of taking notes in meetings and various other bits and pieces, you need to kind of grab the things at your fingertips that make your life easier. I've always said to kind of teams that I've led and managed, we should embrace technology because, you know, that way we're kind of, one, staying abreast of the changes in technology. We can talk about things quite comfortably and so on. But two, we're kind of hopefully using tools that make our lives a little bit easier, and anything that can reduce your admin burden, because anyone who works does a career in HR will know there's a huge admin burden no matter what role you do. Anything that can reduce that, take it away, make it easier, make it more streamlined, I am a big fan of and would absolutely embrace. If someone came to me with a magic tool that could absolutely ease my admin burden, I'd be, sign me up. How do I get a view on that?
Yeah, it might be out there. But again, I think that's encouraging, isn't it, to think that you can train yourself to be better at the stuff you find hard and use the tech, let that help you. So I think that's a useful takeaway, isn't it? Because it can be a bit overwhelming, can't it? I think HR in particular has got that really difficult combination of reactive, proactive strategy, and then,
Absolutely.
oh my God, the house is on fire, drop everything. You know, that is really challenging. So any kind of processes or systems. So loving all of that. Tell me then, you know, you've worked in HR in lots of different organizations, you've managed lots of different teams. Tell me what you think makes a good HR person.
I don't think there is any set recipe or any set kind of skills that make a good HR person. I think they come in all different shapes and sizes, and I think I've kind of worked with all different shapes and sizes across the last sort of 30 years. 30 years, I've just aged myself a little bit, 20 odd years there.
Either way, you're looking fabulous.
Thank you. And I think those people have been successful in their own ways. I think working in HR, the biggest thing you need to be is authentic. I think if you're trying to be something you're not, you will absolutely fail. There are a few key attributes that anybody working in this field needs to have, and I don't think they just kind of sit well in this field. I think they sit well across a number of different fields. Authenticity is one. Doing what you say you're going to do is another. We've touched on things like organization and been able to juggle multiple priorities. I think as the role of HR has evolved across the years, the biggest thing I've always said to my teams is be curious. I think if you have a lack of curiosity, then you're probably going to hinder yourself from growth. This is, that annoying 2-year-old question. Challenge the why, not in an annoying way, but understand why we do things certain ways, why a business is taking a particular path, how we can support it. That's when you'll start to deliver things that are much more impactful and aligned to kind of the business's overarching strategy. The curiosity piece for me is key part of being a good HR professional. One, you'll stay on top of your knowledge. You'll go out to a network of peers and understand what they're doing, learn some best practice, learn what's working well in certain industries or others. I just think, that for me is probably one of the key attributes I would say every HR person needs to have, is that curiosity piece and that willingness to kind of grow and develop their skills and stay abreast of what's kind of going on, both in HR, but also in the world of business, as the role of HR is evolving and changing all the time.
Yeah, and it's one of the things that makes HR so interesting, because it is in business and business is constantly evolving. It never stays still, does it? It has an energy to it. I think those of us who are drawn to working in business generally, we are really interested and engaged with it. And as you say, that being curious about it. You want to know how things work. Fantastic.
The last 20 odd years, I've seen the role of a HR professional develop fundamentally from being what was almost like an admin function way back when to something that absolutely holds a strategic place at the table and influence kind of overarching business strategy. That for me is phenomenal to see that development of the field that I work in what is essentially a short period of time, 20 plus years.
Yeah. Long may it continue.
Indeed.
So we have time for one last question. And what I ask everybody at the end is, where are you now and what is next for you? But I wonder if you'll just give us a quick cul-de-sac on the way to that. I was very interested in your background, Victoria, to see that you had gone from a senior HR position to CEO of the same business. I don't know anyone else has done that. So I was fascinated to know about how that came about, and kind of, did it feel risky? Did it feel brave? Tell us a bit about that.
Did it feel risky? Absolutely, it did. So this was, again, in a private equity business. I joined them as they'd just been acquired by private equity, did the whole carve-out piece as the senior HR person in the business, alongside some acquisition. I worked during my tenure as the kind of group HR director. I worked exceedingly closely with the CEO of the business, very much as his kind of number two. Helped him to develop things like the operating rhythm for the business. And I do think when you reach the senior kind of HR people position in an organization, you absolutely need to work hand in glove with the CEO of a business. I think when that relationship is working well, then the company will enjoy great success. coming back to my earlier point about people being right at the core of an organization, I think what he also recognized in me was an interest outside of kind of my own swim lane, if that makes sense, and my ability to be able to take people on a journey. And unfortunately, he was taken unwell. He left the business through ill health. And no one was more surprised than me when the private equity owners came and spoke to me about stepping in temporarily. Now, there was a very specific backdrop to what we were navigating at the point in time, which was the potential offboarding of our largest customer, alongside onboarding another large customer at the same time. We absolutely need to get the workforce all kind of aligned behind one vision. And I think if we'd have looked for an external appointment, we wouldn't have got the skill set we needed, nor someone with the skills, knowledge and experience to take the company on the journey it needed to navigate. And I think out of the remaining executive team, it was probably a natural appointment in hindsight. Was it scary stepping into those shoes? Absolutely.
Did you have to think a lot about it, or was it a yes, this is right?
I thought about it overnight. Is that a lot?
I mean, overnight, yeah, a couple of glasses of wine. It was a yes by the morning. Yeah,
but I've always kind of seen it as when you sit on an exec team within an organization, as a director within the business, you've got a responsibility to those people in the organization that sits kind of alongside you. They rely on you to pay their mortgages every month, so on and so forth. And if people thought I was the best person for the job, then I certainly wasn't going to shy away from that responsibility. I learned so much in the kind of following 12 months, following 18 months, nearly 2 years, as I kind of navigated the landscape in that role. And that was taking the company on a huge transformation journey, and then selling kind of the majority of the business and assets of that business, and then kind of leaving it part with the organization that we'd sold it to, and then our sister company we kind of hived off, and I left that with an MD in charge and just supported their transition to kind of in a standalone business. So huge learning curve. I definitely gave myself a month off after that. Put my feet up for a bit, enjoyed the summer. But would I change it? No, I absolutely wouldn't. I think it was a fantastic opportunity for me, and I learned so much navigating it.
And I'm sure adds real depth and richness to the work that you're doing now. So tell us a little bit about what you do now.
So I've navigated slightly away from HR now, although people will always sit at the core of everything I do. Going back to the comments I've made about people sitting at the heart of an organization, I've very much kind of navigated into the transformation and change arena. I've done a number of kind of projects since I kind of left the CEO role, and that is supporting businesses through transformation and change, but very much with a lens on kind of people and taking the people on the journey with you. So I've done some that have been very much in the people-centric space, so more around HR transformation, and more latterly I'm doing sort of full business transformation programs at the moment.
Fantastic. And what an interesting line through from PwC. You can see all the little breadcrumb trail, can't you, through?
Yeah.
Fascinating. Well, thank you so much for your time, Victoria. I think what I'm hoping with this podcast as well, and I think your episode's a really good example of that, is just to showcase to people who are perhaps starting out in their careers or trying to work out which way to go, just to showcase to them all the different opportunities that are out there. And I think with your great headline of be curious, you never know where your career is going to take you.
No, and I stand by the skills you learn in a HR kind of an HR banner and wrapper can set you up for kind of moving into so many different areas. And I've seen other colleagues do the same. It genuinely can kind of set you up with the skills to kind of try so many different things. It doesn't mean to say you're kind of stuck within that HR swim lane for the rest of your career. It absolutely those transferable abilities.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Victoria. Thank you, everybody, as well, for listening. Do sign up to my mailing list if you'd like early access to the next edition and also some behind the scenes content. Thanks again, Victoria, for your time. And thanks, everyone, for listening.